talk about the fences. It's time to discuss operations and expenses. It's time, it's really time to elevate small businesses. It's time for Joe to drop his knowledge. It's relentless. This rhyme of mine is getting a bit ridiculous. So here we go. We're live with Joe. Enjoy the show.
What is up, Fins fam? So good to be back with you guys, virtually as it were, for another weekly live Q&A. What do we call this? Ask the Experts live Q&A. You'd think I'd done this a time or two, but we're still figuring it out. So glad you guys could join us. If you guys are listening to the podcast, welcome. You're listening to a recorded version of a live conversation I host most every Saturday from 10 to 11 a.m. Central. Sometimes we go longer if we're in the middle of a good discussion, but we always start fairly promptly at 10 a.m. Central. If you guys are liking what you're listening to, it would be great and mean the world to our team if you gave it just an honest review and a rating. It would mean a lot. Give us some feedback. If you guys are watching live, or if you're listening to the podcast and would like to watch live, like the people watching live with us right now, be sure to tune in on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, sometimes TikTok. Just search Joe Everest and you'll probably find the show. We'd love for you guys to tune in and become an active part of the conversation that we hold most every Saturday. Today's conversation, we're going to be talking about hiring. I already saw a comment in the chat, and we'll bring it up here in a second, but things are absolutely kicking off. Depending where in the country you are, they might have started kicking off a month ago. Some of the guys started talking about being really busy a little while ago. So maybe it's already, or maybe like us in the last few weeks, it has absolutely cut loose. We're in the middle of doing another hiring round, finding more qualified team members, and qualified is the important word here. Where do we look for them? How do we find them? How do we try to qualify them? And I say try because it seems like there's always a little bit of guesswork that goes into a good interview. But where do we find them? How do we qualify them? And what do we base our decisions on? If you guys are watching live, be sure to drop your feedback in the comments. I'd like for this to be a two-way conversation as always. Before we dive into the conversation, though, we have to give a ton of thanks to Expert Professional Wood Care Products. They make this live possible. Caleb and Ashley, thank you so much for sponsoring the live Q&A that we host. Guys, if you haven't tried a fin stain, you should try them out. They're a sponsor because we were a customer and we love the stain so much. And then we became very good friends with Caleb and Ashley. Good people, good team, just good all-around business. So if you guys haven't tried them, you absolutely should. Reach out to the team and they'd be glad to take care of you guys. All right. With that being said, let's jump into the comments. I saw Front Rock Fence was the first. Let me scroll up. Yep, was the first comment. What's up, Fins fam? Weather's getting better and books are filling up fast. I'm pumped. I'm so happy for you. I think we're in the Midwest. I'm in the middle of the Midwest, and things tend to take a little bit of time to percolate into the Midwest. So we too started getting busy probably the last couple weeks, right around 1st of March. We had a lawn and garden show that really kicked things off for us. Next month, we have a HBA home show. So it's a little bit later. Typically, it's in January. Now it's in April. So we'll see how that goes. But things are getting busy. And this comment is the exact reason why we are now looking to add on to our team. Brian says, great topic. Since finding and hiring installers has changed so much since 2020. You're not kidding. The world's upside down, right? Everything's different. Things are starting to come back to normal, but you're absolutely right in that the days of having a stack of applications to go through and then try to determine which one to call back for interviews or call them out, all back for interviews, see who shows up. Those days, I'm sure there are still some hiring processes that are like that, but we really ought to see about updating them for sure. Ken Brown, what is up? Good morning, Joe. Hope you had a great week. Absolutely. Any week that ends in a weekend is a pretty good week in my book. So, Ken, thanks for joining. Appreciate it. Hi, people are becoming the Sherwin-Williams and Benjamin Moore stains, but they're not oil-based. Yeah, penetrating oil-based stains is the way. and this is a whole conversation just about stains. We ought to talk about it when Caleb comes on. But the difference between I had this conversation with a potential customer earlier this week. They wanted their fence painted black. And I'm like, well, do you? I mean, I know you want the look, the aesthetics. You've found a Pinterest picture you shared with me, but that's day one. What do you want this fence to look like in year 2, 3, 4, 5? Let's talk about a penetrating stain. Now, you will see the grain, but anyway, it's a whole conversation about the difference in paints and stains. We should absolutely have that when Caleb's on. Ken says, been the busiest winter we've had in 52 years. Congratulations, Ken. That is absolutely awesome. Happy for you. For whatever reason, we seem to have reverted back to 2018 and 19, where somewhere right around Thanksgiving, things tailed off, and then right around March 1st, they picked up. On slow years, maybe it was Easter. But this year, that we fell off shortly out. And I say fell off. We obviously still kept building fence, but we weren't 8 to 10 weeks out. We were 3 to 4 weeks out. Somewhere after Thanksgiving, right around Thanksgiving, and then it's just recently picked back up. So I am super jealous of folks that are busy through the wintertime. Attaboy, Kim. Brian Davis, good morning, sir. Ed Brown, do you think Mesmer's is a good stain brand? I've never used it. So we had used some different stains that are advertised heavily in the fencing market. Weren't thrilled with when you pop the top, it really smells. You can smell kind of that solvent chemically smell. Neighbors of our customers weren't super impressed with that either. So they're typically asking us, how dangerous is this? What are you putting in my yard? What are my kids touching? The whole 9 yards. Expert sent us. So I had found Caleb on Facebook. He was giving free trainings on Facebook. And so I followed him for a little while. And then he had made a comment like, hey, if you'd like to try it, we'll be happy to send out free samples to let you try it, touch it, feel it, figure out, if it's right for your business. Asked for a free sample, got in a free jug of the stain. I can't remember. I don't think it was a 5-gallon. Anyway, we got a sample in. Opened the top, and the first thing that we noticed was the room wasn't filled with this chemical smell. And then we got to using it. We stirred it up. We applied it to the boards. We let it dry. We cut a segment off, just similar to the one that you guys see in around Facebook. And that it was similar to that picture where you cut off, you look at the cross section, you see the penetration of the oils in the wood, and we were sold at that point. And then we got to know Caleb and Ashley and the family and the team, and just fell further in love with the brand. So I have no experience with Mesmer's. I don't have really any inclination to go anywhere else. Brian says, every time I hear Caleb Ross speak, it makes me want to switch all my crews to just staining. Great people, and still talk about how great their Expert Stain and Seal University was to people. I absolutely agree. These are people that legitimately want to see everyone succeed, however they can. And they've infused that into their team, right? And so over the weekend, we had an order come in. We forwarded it to the team, and I hadn't heard back. So I reached out, got a hold of Kurt, and immediately Kurt said, you know what? It's processed, but I'm on it, and this will be solved. And sure enough, it was solved. Couldn't find out it was already in the works, but Kurt made sure that the problem was solved. It wasn't actually a problem. It was just, so Kurt took care of it. Team, like I said, Caleb and Ashley have infused into the team the help everyone succeed, solve all their problems mentality. It's absolutely great. Ken, Expert Stain and Seal, amazing products and people. Couldn't agree more. Like I said, they are a sponsor because they're a great company and because we use them. I don't want anyone to be fooled by the fact that they are a sponsor to think this is simply me speaking about a sponsor of the channel. It's a product. If you came down here to Ozark Fence, we've got a ton of expert professional wood care products sitting out in the stain shop ready to go out into the field. We love it a lot. All right, guys, let's dive into it. Team members, where do you find them? Where do you find the good ones? How do you qualify them? That sort of thing. I'll run you through our process just because it's the one that seems to have worked for us in the past. I would love to hear your guys' feedback, though. We all get better together, right? So we're all sharing these ideas, and I feel like the industry is to a place now where we're getting back to freely sharing these ideas. Caleb and I talked, and several of you and I have talked about this, but Caleb and I's conversation stuck in my mind when we're talking about, in our grandpa's days, they'd sit at the lumber shop, because the lumber shop typically had donuts, which that was great. But they'd sit around while the lumber was getting loaded up, had a donut, had some coffee, and talk shop. What's working, what's not, who's good to work for, maybe who's not, that sort of thing. They're sharing experiences, right? New tools, new processes, this sort of thing, new suppliers. Sometime in my dad's era, that all changed, or maybe it was late into my granddad's era, but at some point it changed to where instead of freely sharing these experiences, all of a sudden they became secrets that were to be cherished and hoarded and not shared with other people. And our industry went that way for quite a while. And there is likely still that in our industry today. But I think what we found out in my generation, what we're finding out in the last several years is my secrets look a lot like your secrets. They're different versions. There's different iterations to them, but they're all roughly the same. No one has the secret sauce. There is no secret sauce, right? There is no one way that is the best way. It's always a bunch of different methods depending on situations. Is it wet or dry? Is it rocky or not? But they're all similar. So by sharing experience, we're actually all getting better, because if I share my experiences with you, you're more likely to share your experiences with me, and we both gain learned experience through each other. All that's to say, please share what works for you guys. Where do you find team members? How do you qualify them? What does the interview look like? That sort of thing. All right, Nathan's got a good point. We stain all of our products with a stain track machine outside. There are VOCs in any of these solvents, awaiting a comprehensive test to see all these brands against each other. Absolutely, Nathan. Barring that, we don't have a lab here. Barring that, really, we kind of give it the sniff test. What gives off the chemical smell and what doesn't. Front Rock Fences, love Expert Sand Seal. Appreciate Caleb and team for taking the time to do an interview with me for our Front Rock Fence magazine. Absolutely. The man himself, Caleb Roth. Caleb, good morning. Good morning, Joe. Just tuning in. Good morning, Caleb. Appreciate you joining us. Jonathan Tully says, I'm considering getting into the fence building and maybe starting a company potentially. What would be your advice for me to get experience when I don't know anyone who builds fences? That's going to be a tough one, Jonathan. You can go to a lot of the industry events will have trainings at them. But as far as like hands-on training, the Mr. Fence Academy is one that I know does hands-on training, and they're doing them on the road. You can look at Mr. Fence Academy. Not affiliated with them, I just know that they do on-site trainings. The best experience is always to get on with a fencing company that has a good reputation in the market. Not only get good experience as far as building the fence, figuring out what the best practices are in the industry, but also seeing how a well-run company operates. There's more to a fence company than building a great fence. It obviously starts there. That is the foundation, is building great fence. But then you have to get into the running the business aspect, all the stuff that happens behind the scenes, the taxes, the payroll, the accounts receivable and payable, the making sure all the materials are in on time, the sales aspect of it. There's just a lot more to it. I would recommend finding a fence company, even if you don't know anyone. Do research on fence companies in your area. Figure out who's a highly rated company that's looking for help, and join on with them for several years to get your feet under you and get a good idea for it. Would be my advice. Nick Wright, good morning, Joe. You're correct. I love the camaraderie and openness of the industry right now. Absolutely. It is quite the time to be in the industry at the moment. Craig Eubanks says, good morning, Joe. Love the content. Thank you, Craig. Billy Grove says, let's go. Mr. Fence Academy will change your life. Brian says, in the past, it was just posting that on Craigslist for us. Guilty. But that isn't working anymore. So now we have been connecting with landscape companies, who seem to have tons of people to train on their fence side. So it's been helpful to find other trades who want to expand into fencing and partner with them somehow. This is what I'm talking about. Sharing ideas and tips and tricks. So landscaping makes sense. We see when we're selling fencing materials, fencing supplies, we're seeing a good amount of landscape companies come in buying materials, and then typically we follow up with them. How'd the project go? And it seems like they're doing good work. They're already in the backyard. They already have the customer's trust, and typically, depending on the landscape contractors, is not inexpensive. So selling quality fence to that customer makes perfect sense. I love it. Good morning, Joe. Have you done any acoustic fencing? I haven't. So I guess we should define an acoustic fence. I think of acoustic fencing as like up and down the interstates. These poured concrete fences, precast concrete fences would be my definition of an acoustic fence. Before that, I mean, we've done 8-foot solid, wood fences along a major roadway to try to dampen a little bit of the noise. Dampen is the key word there. You never get rid of it. We've done, a fair amount of those, but as far as the precast concrete, we have not. Chris Steele, what's up, Joe? What's up, Chris? Appreciate you joining in. All right. So as Brian alluded to in the past, Craigslist was a pretty decent place for us. I tell you, after Craigslist, the first was a newspaper, right? Back when those were a thing. Then came, Craigslist was in general, it was a good site for quite a while. Whether you were looking for help or, looking for equipment or anything like that, Craigslist was a pretty good place because there really weren't alternatives to it out there. After that, I believe the sequence of all this might be different, but we went to Facebook for a while, bringing on team members, and it worked very well. We were able to dial in. Now, Craigslist, you could post it in your city, so it was fairly dialed in. But with Facebook, we were able to define, who these we would create an ad within Ads Manager, figure out exactly who it was going to be displayed to, pick out some key attributes of the people that we thought would do well with this, and then send it out. That had fairly good results. Now, this is probably roughly in the time of the Cambridge Analytica type thing with Facebook, but we lost a lot of those attributes that we could send ads to. And in general, less people are on Facebook today than were on Facebook a number of years ago, right? So a portion of that attention has moved elsewhere. Now, whether it's moved to, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, a good amount of that attention is elsewhere now. There's just a lot of different places to look and to spend time. So Facebook has lost its efficiency. We've tried the hiring websites. We've tried LinkedIn. LinkedIn's worked fairly well in the past. It depends on the position though, too, right? So if we're hiring an office position, LinkedIn would probably perform well. But LinkedIn might not perform well for hiring like a general team member, someone to work in the warehouse. Vice versa. It just depends on where the positions were being held. So we would post them in all these different places. But the maddening part of this is we would then have to try to aggregate those, right? We would have to remember where all do I have these plugged in at, these ads? Where am I getting applications? A lot of them would get emailed, but where do we communicate with them? Which side are they on? So after that, got hooked up with HireClick through actually Matt Warner is to thank for both these. HireClick. So HireClick, what it does is it aggregates all these. So we just did it this morning. Built an ad. Actually, we didn't build an ad. We retooled an existing ad that we ran last spring. Made the pay current, made the benefits current. We've changed. Thanks to Brian and FWA, we now offer paid health insurance, that sort of thing. We've also increased the pay for starting pay and all of that. So we revamped the ad a little bit, retooled it a bit, made sure it was up and current, clicked activate or change the status to active. And now it goes out to all of the places where you would think to find, with the exception of Facebook. And here's why. So all their other places, it sends them all out. My application now is on, I forget the number. I'd have to look on HireClick, but it's something like 12 or 14 different sites. It's live right now. So they'll start now. The different sites process these things differently in a different length of time. But by this afternoon, we should start getting applicants in. Typically, the last time we had used this, we got something like 40 or 50 applicants in. we were able to go through there on the site and read through either a resume or an application, depending on what they applied, and really determine what the next step was going to be. So for us, HireClick is the first step. Let me catch up with everybody. Yeah, Matt Warner led me to HireClick and has worked amazing for hiring this season. He should get paid some sort of commission, because I feel like, and now HireClick is a paid service. It does a lot of things you would want to pay for. I don't know how much we pay for this, because it is not enough. Whatever the number is, it is worth it to just put it on our budget for a monthly expenditure. But Matt should be definitely getting some sort of commission off these monthly fees, because a lot of people use it. You use it once. I want to say there was a free trial. When we first started it, there was a free trial, like a 30-day trial. We placed a quality team member in something like 2 weeks, and we added our credit card information and we were done. Matt's led a lot of people to HireClick. Cannon Johnson, the man, the myth. Cannon, we were just talking about you yesterday in a meeting about the Fishbowl leading us to Fishbowl. Thank you very much. I'm actually I've got a conversation with your guy on Monday, so look forward to learning more about that. Good morning, Joe, father of the Fish fam. I don't know about that, but I will take the orange emoji. Thank you so much. Brian Fredrickson says, I wonder if we can all get together and create an industry job fair if we combine with a couple other trades who aren't having labor shortage. Is there a trade that's not having a labor shortage? I don't know. Maybe some sort of online job fair. I don't know. I'm just getting crazy ideas sometimes. So there's a trades, what are they calling this? It's a job fair, but it's also like a 9-week apprentice program. But they've got plumbers, electricians, heavy equipment operators. There's another trade involved here too. That at the end of this 9 weeks, you wind up with a job. You wind up with OSHA 10-hour, and it's like a registered apprenticeship also somehow, but it's only 9 weeks anyway. But at the end of this, it's so beautiful because these companies all pitched in, all helped write the curriculum, all paid for the trainings and all that. But at the end of it, at the end of the 9 weeks, they get a pool of candidates that if they made it to the end, they're qualified, right? And they've had a little bit of experience in all these different trades. And maybe they've decided, hey, I didn't really get the electrical part of this. I'm not handy with heavy equipment. I don't have the dexterity for that. But the plumbing, I really excelled at that. Well, guess what? Now the plumbing company has a great potential hire to put into their long-term apprenticeship program. I saw that a week ago, and it kind of made me wonder what it's like to get involved with that financially. I think you're right. I think some sort of local job fair. Now, we got to get fence companies talking to each other, right? So that's step one. But to do some sort of like fencing apprenticeship program, like a group apprenticeship program, I think would be incredible. The first step would be actually getting everyone to talk. The second would be like some sort of job fair like this, and then lead up to this apprenticeship program, whatever it may look like. Build a team of good people, and those good people will know more good people. I love that a lot. I really do. The problem is right now, so that's typically what we do to start, is we'll ask all our team members internally, hey, who knows somebody? Like, you don't, or if you're willing to vouch for them, bring them in. We'll talk to them. A lot, at least in our market, a lot of these people are in solid jobs, solid careers. We do occasionally find that. Actually, we're kind of in the middle of a situation like that right now. But for some positions, we typically go outside. But you're right, Caleb, is if you craft a good team that's good with their business, they know their business, then they'll likely lead you to more good people. Shane Catton, what's up, Fence fam? What's up, Shane? How are you? Yeah, a training fair. That would be interesting. I like where this is headed, Brian. All right, so HireClick brings everybody in. I was going to share with you guys our HireClick, but there's not a way live to like cover up people's private data, which in the dashboard, you see quite a lot of their personal like contact type data. So wasn't good with that, but basically you can search by, so you have different job descriptions, which we would have a general team leader. We also have a manufacturing equipment apprentice for the Ozark Wireworks side. We also had one that's still on there from the content creator, I believe. Is that the job posting we had, content creator? So that one's still on there. But you can have different job listings for different positions. Makes sense. But you can filter the applications by job listing. So it's not one big. And then you can ask for different questions. Now they have a generic, job description, compensation, what's the pay rate, what are the benefits, this sort of thing. But you're also able to ask different questions. For us, a valid driver's license is important. So you need to have a valid driver's license. You need to have reliable transportation, that sort of thing. So you can add in some custom type questions, and then they can attach a resume to it as well. And then we can filter by, all of those attributes. Do they have a valid driver's license? If they click no, and the application says it's required, well, then off they go, sort of thing. But then you're left with a pool. Most everyone follows directions, so you're left with a pool of 40 or 50 candidates. Well, how do you whittle that down? In this position, in our instance, we're hiring one more. We brought a team member on about a week and a half ago now. It's working out well. We need to add one more. We're building out a crew. Need one more. So how do you weed through 4 people or 50 people to get down to 4 or 5 for interviews to pick the rock star? For us, so HireClick is step 1. We bring all these in. Step 2 is a company called HireBus, which actually it came to us through Pink Collars. Pink Collars was a calling service that we had used for a number of years. And then Matt Warner's had mentioned it again, I believe. Anyway, HireBus is the qualifying step. So I don't even know. So HireBus, it basically, you would email them. You would say, hey, we appreciate you meet the qualifications. We appreciate you taking the time to fill everything out. The next step is a personality assessment. Make sure you're on the same page with our team. Make sure you'd be a good fit, and make sure you would feel like you were a good fit with our team. To do that, follow this. So it gives you a link. And it's literally a page of 100 words. Mark, did you go through the HireBus?
I probably did. I just don't remember.
Yeah, it was right around when you'd come on is when we started HireBus. So it's basically just a random page of 100 words. And it says something like select the words that are most applicable to what people would describe you as, or something like that. And there's like smart and funny and hardworking, but there's also, it's 100 different words that could describe somebody, both positively and negatively. And it feeds us through an algorithm that judges how quickly you made selections, how long it took you between selections, and how long it took you overall. Because I think it says choose a minimum of 20 or something. So one was, it'll let you click continue without choosing 20, and it has a counter on the top. So you know where you're at. How many did you choose? How quickly did you choose all of them? How quickly were you between the first choice and the second choice? You can deselect them, and it gives you instructions in the beginning, but also, were you indecisive? Did you click some and then unclick them? In what order did you click them in? So did you click, smart then funny, or funny then smart, or whatever? It feeds it through an algorithm. And at the end of this algorithm, and the reason it's called HireBus is it says everyone should be in the correct seat, right? You don't want somebody driving that should really be navigating. You don't want someone navigating that should really be driving. In your business is a bus. View your business as a bus, and everyone has a correct seat. We don't want someone answering the phones that isn't comfortable with that, and they'd rather be in production. And we don't want somebody that's in production that would much rather be in sales, and vice versa. We want everyone in the right seats. I took the test to begin with because I was like, I feel like it's just picking words. Like, how does this make any sense? And so I picked it. After you pick these words, one, it tells you, you say, hey, this is the seat we're hiring for. Are they a good fit for that seat? And here are the other seats that they would be good at. And it gives a score. But it also gives a personality assessment in that this person, one of them is emotional support. So does this person need or require emotional support to perform at a high level? Do they need constant emotional feedback. Hey, you're doing a great job. We really appreciate you. How are you today? How are you feeling? That sort of thing. Emotional support. Or is this person perfectly fine not receiving emotional support? I scored pretty low on that. I don't need a lot of touchy-feely conversation about how my performance made anyone else feel. I am more of a data-driven. If the numbers say that I'm doing a good job, then I know I'm doing a good job, regardless of if I made someone feel good or something like that. So it gives us in-depth personality assessments. There's also military leadership. So how readily you'll receive a task, how well you can then pass that task on to delegate it, how likely are you to try to change the task to a way that you think would be better. It has all these different measures of someone's personality. So at first I went into it thinking, what are these words? What are these words going to do? Then I read the assessment. I was like, oh, this is actually really good. And so also it's giving you a line graph, low on emotional support, maybe higher on military leadership. What's another one? Drive is one. There's one talking about you're more likely to see something through to the end, or maybe once you've achieved a milestone, you're less likely to see it through once that milestone. So that would be a good person to start a task and pass it off. Anyway, so we're looking at these graphs. I was like, that's interesting. Pretty accurate. All right, well, let's run the rest of the team through it. Let's see how everyone else scores. And it was interesting and a little, I don't know, it wasn't scary, but it was just interesting. And it was scary how good the technology is when you view my graph and you overlay other people's graphs. Okay, well, are Matt and Scott, so my field supervisor and my on-site supervisor, are both pretty close to me as far as what this graph looks like. But then we went to, like, say, our warehouse. All of our warehouse guys, they looked the same. They didn't look exactly like mine, but they looked the same in this group. Same thing with our infield, our infield installers. They all looked pretty same. Our office staff all looked fairly the same. They look different compared to each from group to group, but within that group, they look pretty the same. They look fairly the same. And we're looking at the personality feedback of team members that have been here for years. We know these team members inside and out, and we're reading this feedback with them and say, how this seems like it's very accurate to me. How accurate is this? How accurate do you perceive it? Do you think it's accurate based on the knowledge you have of yourself? It's good. It's very, very good. And so we felt comfortable enough to, once we have these group of 40 or 50 applicants, we then send all of them the assessment link. So, hey, here's the link for the assessment. Again, we want to make sure you'll be a good fit for the team, but we also want to make sure the team is a good fit for you. We want this to be mutually beneficial. So if you could it takes about 5 minutes, fill this out. Step one is just the application. Step 2 of the assessment is, do they do it? Half don't. They apply. They took the time to apply. They took the time to send it. Now, on some of these employment sites, I think you can automatically send applications or automatically send resumes. So there could be some of that. So that weeds out. So if we're at 40, that weeds out 20 off the top. So now we've got 20 that have gone through the assessment. And at the end of this, if we're hiring a general team member to work in the warehouse, then we're going to say, hey, here are the top 4 guys in the warehouse. Here's what their charts look like. Let's find the team members here whose chart matches this chart or close. So we'll pick the top 4 or 5 that most closely match this chart and bring them in for an interview. And I'll be honest, guys, at this point, the interview isn't so much what do you know. There's not a lot that goes on here that we can't train. That isn't just like bare skill. We can train most everything here. What you can't train is personality. Right, you can train skills, you can't train personality, and maybe you can influence personality, but it's not a trainable skill really. Similar to leadership, leadership seems to be something that you can teach people. I don't know, and this is a bigger conversation, I'm sure, but I don't know that anyone is just inherently born a leader. Some people will say they are, and that's fine, but my opinion is it's a taught skill. Anyway, this interview, they're typically 15 to 20 minutes. Is more of from the personality perspective, did we hit the mark or did we miss the mark? Do they seem like they would be a good fit as a person with our team? And the questions are similar to like when you're not working, what do you do for fun? What do you love to do? The other one is tell us about your family life. How about, do you have a big family or little family? Where are you in the sibling hierarchy? And then we have a fun conversation because I'm the oldest. My sister's the youngest, and we have a conversation about which of those is the best, which is obviously the oldest. We just have a fun conversation, 15, 20 minutes. What do you love to do? When you're not at work, what does the ideal team look like? If you could wave a magic wand and create the ideal team, what does it look like? How many people are on it? Is it a 2-person team or a 20-person team? And if you magic wand this, bippity boppity boop your way into an ideal team, are you the team leader or are you a support, right? Are you a team supporter or team lead? Some people would love to just be in a support role. They don't really have interest in leadership. Perfectly fine. And tell us about school. How was school for you? How did you do in school? Did you play team sports, which is a pretty big indicator? And it doesn't really, we really look for how long they played the team sport. Not really like, were you an all-state quarterback? That doesn't matter. It was, did you spend 3 years playing on the team? How'd you like it? And we'll ask, how'd you guys do? And how did you play one position or multiple positions to kind of give us an idea? Team sports breed team players, right? So they know how to work cohesively as a team unit. They know that their wins are their team wins and the team's losses are their losses. And they know that they are responsible for something bigger than themselves. All of this stuff translates. And so from those 4 or 5, we'll thank them and we'll show them out. And then at the end of this, we'll all sit down and whoever was in the interviews. And it kind of depends on the position. So, if we're hiring someone for the field, Scott, our field superintendent, will be in the meeting. Typically, Sarah's in the meeting and myself. And then maybe we'll bring in Matt as a on-site superintendent just to be a different perspective. We'll all sit down and we'll say, hey, what'd you love about them? What didn't you love? And, if you were to pick one, who would you pick? And we typically, we'll rank them privately and then we'll share the rankings to see, okay, so was my number one your number one? And we'll discuss like what was a determining factor. And from there, we typically offer the job. Now, this has changed recently. So in the past, in 2021, 22, job market was really hot, and it's still hot, but it was red hot. And when we were doing this, team meetings after the interviews and then doing a callback to offer the position, what we were finding is even if that callback was a day or two later, they had found another job. People were hiring on the spot. And so we changed that during that time frame to say, it was, I would go around the circle like, all right, at the end of the interview, anybody got anything? And it was either, yep, I'm good, or no, I don't have anything. And it was basically that simple. And at that point, so if there were more yeses than nos, then we'd offer the job and we'd say, hey, this is a 30-day trial. Welcome to the team. At 30 days, we'll all sit down. We'll make sure we're a good fit for you. You're a good fit for us. And we'll just see how this goes. Way happier with the taking our time, meeting separately as a team, and then offering a job a week or two later. Seems to work out well for us. Now, no system is perfect, right? So that's one of the reasons I'm coming here is to ask you guys your experiences, because occasionally there are team members that make it through that for whatever reason just don't end up being a good fit. Either way, maybe they come into the team and they're just not happy with how things are run, or maybe the structure, whatever. So I tell you, the one thing that if people say that they're good with, and if they are good with it, they generally succeed, is being open to change. Right. So in the middle of your day, can you change tasks? Can you be, and we use the example, can you be building fence in the morning and then after lunch you get brought into the shop and we're picking fittings or we're fabricating gates, and maybe right before you go, we're pre-singing some boards. How good are you with change? Are you fine with change? Do you enjoy change? And change is actually one of the things that's on this personality assessment also, but we talk about it a little bit. The people that are great with change and do well with it do very well here because we do a variety of things. We've had team members in the past that we weren't asking about change, and if they do not, there are people, and for this isn't to say anything negatively, but that just aren't good with change. They want one task. So, think like in a factory where you're given one role. Your role is to put all of these bolts on all of the nuts, make sure they're tight before it goes on down the line, whatever the example is. But that you do the same thing all day, every day, 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, that sort of thing. And they love that. But when they come to our operation where it could be, you could have 3 or 4 different roles during a workday, depending on what's going on. They don't do well in that scenario. And so we've realized that. And so now that's part of our interview process. I'd love to hear what works well for you guys, because I think that we can all learn together. So I say all that to say, the reason I say that is we're not perfect either. In an ideal world, we would place a candidate, we would place a team member through all this application, through all the candidate program, place a team member, and they would feel right at home and they would perform well, but also they would feel supported. It would be a mutual benefit, right? It would be a win-win. And when it's not a win-win, you almost take that personally. We missed something, and because one, we wasted their time, I feel like. If they only worked out for a week or a day or whatever it is, then we wasted their time. We also wasted a fair amount of our time. We went through the application process, the interview process, the personality screening. We missed something. There was something there that I didn't pick up on. And you take that stuff kind of personally. So I would like to refine our process, but I'm asking you guys for help. So in the chat, let me know what works well for you guys, or what hasn't worked for you guys. What pitfalls have you fallen into that you're like, listen, we need to get out of it? For us, it was on-site hiring. It led to us growing the team very quickly, but we were missing out on things. We were focusing on hiring, not focusing on placing good personalities with like personalities in the team, if that makes sense. I'd love to hear from you guys. Drew Bishop says, I'd love to hire more employees, but first I have to figure out legal payroll. Right. I just have one right-hand man, and I just pay him under the table for now. All right. But I'd like to move to a more professional team and pay them all legally. Drew, I love that you recognize this and that you know that there is a path to getting more above board with this. It probably depends on your accounting software. For us, we run our payroll through QuickBooks. Now, there are payroll services. A+ Payroll is, it seems like a big nationwide. There's some nationwide payroll companies, but they typically want you to have a minimum number of employees. QuickBooks makes payroll pretty easy, at least for us. There's some legwork involved. You have to register I don't know where you are in your business, but you register with the state, you get a employee ID number, an EIN, or employer ID number, identification number. So EIN that registers you with the state and with the federal government, I would assume. You figure out what your tax rate is. And so a lot of this you plug into QuickBooks. Well, a lot of times you plug in your location now, and it automatically generates, hey, here are your state, county, or city, state, county, whatever, all the taxes involved. And you enter their information, the employee or team member's information, their filing status. And now with QuickBooks, so we had to migrate to QuickBooks Online, which is a whole different conversation about why QuickBooks Online absolutely does not excel. One thing they do excel in is when we're onboarding a team member, we can send them an email with a link to is it called Workforce, where you go through for pay stubs. So QuickBooks Workforce, where they'll take all of your tax information, your filing status, your dependents, all of this, also your bank. If you do direct deposit, the banking information, and at that point, once they're all set up, once all that legwork's done, and it's not a 5-minute process, but once that's done, it's as easy as entering in the hours worked, clicking submit, the pay period, clicking submit, If it's direct deposit, it just automatically sync. You have to sync it with your bank and all that, but it'll automatically deduct and distribute and all that. QuickBooks makes it pretty easy. A little bit of legwork up front, but it makes it easier. So that could be on your path to paying your team members above board. Camden says, what is a personality test called? Sorry, I joined late. Let me make sure I'm giving you the right one. I want to say it's HireBus. Let's see that. HireBus.com. When you save all these things as tabs, you just click on them. Yep, HireBus.com. I'll drop it in the chat. So HireBus.com. Let me also find the link for HireClick. Yep. Also, link incoming for HireClick. If you guys are listening to this on the podcast, we will get it in the description. Yep. Deal. All right, HireClick and HireBus. And you will absolutely confuse it. Well, if you're me, you'll absolutely confuse the two. But yeah, these are great. These are the tools we use for hiring. And we're going through this process right now. Like I said, HireClick, we posted a job opening this morning. We'll start receiving, well, let's see. Typically, it's a few hours later for them to get posted to all the sites. But then they typically start generating fairly quickly. None yet. So probably this afternoon we'll start seeing applications. Oh, nope. 9:45. You have an application. So about 15 minutes after we posted it, a job application came in. So HireClick sends that application out and aggregates all of them, sends you an email when you've got an applicant that you can view. I'm not sponsored by either one of these. I'm just sharing with you guys what works well for us. Okay, so Drew's got an LLC. He's been paying taxes on the LLC for 2 years now. Very good. For first year, I was solo operation, so no worries. Absolutely. Last year's when I picked up one employee. I appreciate the advice, Joe. I'm going to check out QuickBooks. So in Rocky Mountain Fence of Idaho has a point. QuickBooks Online is horrifying. I really miss the desktop. I can't agree with this more, that it is awful compared to desktop. Well, we were using Premiere Pro Contractor on desktop. Loved it. Loved the reports. Loved how just intuitive it was to use, which for a company called Intuit, you would think it would be intuitive. Online is awful, but they're sunsetting desktop. So that's on our manufacturing company, Ozark Wireworks. We actually had a call yesterday with a company called WriteWorks that handles our remote desktop for Wireworks, and they also handle our QuickBooks licensing. Well, so their point was QuickBooks is wanting everyone off the legacy, which is anything desktop. Either to go to, you could do desktop enterprise for a chunk of money, or migrate to online, or pay for another year. They're going to let you pay full MSRP for the licenses, which again, wildly expensive. So right now they're making it hurt financially to herd you onto online, but eventually they're just going to start, and they've said it, they're going to start sunsetting the support for these programs. So you can use it as long as it works, but if it ever doesn't work, they're not supporting it, not updating it. They're not doing any of this. So we had switched or migrated Ozark Fence. This all started coming out a couple years, probably 3 or 4 years ago, where they started rumbling that they're wanting everyone to move to online. And the accountant we had used at the time was saying, hey, and we had used him my dad used him for a number of years. We had used this guy for quite a while, had good rapport with him. He said, hey, the sooner you move to online, the better, because it gets more expensive the more data you have to try to move over. Made sense. And I said, I know how to use QuickBooks Desktop. So growing up, my mom started using QuickBooks. Before that, my granddad, everything was on paper, which that's just how it was. So my mom and dad introduced computers into the office. And with that, my mom introduced QuickBooks. She's like, this is a great way of tracking. We didn't have to then go to our accountant and ask for a P&L and a balance sheet. As long as QuickBooks was accurate, our reporting would be accurate. So we started doing that. So I grew up helping my mom figure out how to make QuickBooks work for our company, and sometimes vice versa. What we need to change in our company to make QuickBooks work more effectively. I know the application fairly well. I'm not a certified pro, whatever, but I know how to make it work. So I thought, well, how can the migration to online be any big deal? Well, come to find out, you have to hire a company to help migrate and map all of this data into online. Well, if you're a new company, you probably don't have to. We had data since the mid 90s. So we had, a ton of data, customers, inventory items, historical sales data, and all that. So we hired a company to migrate the data. Like 20% of it didn't map correctly. So we lost everything prior to, I want to say 2010 or 2009. So that ultimately was a fail. And then just getting it to work, it works, but not nearly in as robust of a way as desktop did, which is a shame. We were talking to somebody else about the QuickBooks, and I was just kind of I was like, for a company who has so many users, I mean, QuickBooks as an accounting software has, I don't know how, but everyone I've talked to that has an established business typically uses a version of QuickBooks. Like for a company that has its customer base is so large and they reportedly make a ton of money, you would think the product would be better or would be better by now. Like, okay, so I understand getting a minimum viable product out into the market and then building it as you go. Totally fine. But build it as you go. QuickBooks seems to have just like released online and then just let it stink for a while. The online help is, anyway, this doesn't need to be a QuickBooks thing, but online is horrifying if you're used to using desktop. Now, what I think is true, what I think is if you haven't used desktop, online probably seems fine. You're not used to the reports that you would have had or how the reports, like how easily you can drill down. You can drill into stuff on the online, but not like you could. And the reports are just different. How you handle things, you used to be able to put an invoice as pending and then switch it to final. So we would, anyway, it works a lot differently. But if you haven't used desktop in the past, online probably seems great. So just depends on your experience with QuickBooks. How long you've been using QuickBooks, I think. Al Martins. Good morning, Al. Appreciate you joining the chat. From your profile picture, it looks like you're joining from the Great White North. Appreciate you tuning in. I say that because Al's a bit of a where in the world is Al today sort of fella, so which I am jealous of. All right, Rocky Mountain Fence says, my wife owns a payroll and accounting business and is a programmer. I think she developed Tourette's, helping me and a couple clients too online. I believe it. So what I'd heard about Intuit, and I don't know, this is purely hearsay. I don't know. It came from someone that would probably know. So I was griping about this, about how if you have a company with this many customers, surely it would be better. And he's like, well, here's the thing. Intuit actually makes significantly more money on the professional accounting firms, the professional tax software. I'm not talking about TurboTax. I'm talking, and he named a few that I had never heard of, but are likely used by like professional accounting firms. He said they make way more money on that. This is kind of like an afterthought. And this is like, oh, okay. So now this makes sense that this isn't their primary business. This is just something that also makes them money. So I'm sure your wife that owns an accounting business is probably familiar with whatever other professional services Intuit offers. But anyway, I think we all developed Tourette's when dealing with QuickBooks. I thought I was doing it very well. And for the most part I was, but then we brought on a bookkeeper and a fractional CFO who said, it's okay, but it could be more detailed, right? It could be better. You've got some inventory items in here. They're duplicate or maybe inactive. And of course, me as a business guy, I was like, oh yeah, well, that's because like, oh, well, don't need to know why. I'm just telling you they are duplicate or inactive and we should get rid of them. So we did. QuickBooks Online is probably a good place to start, though. If you're a new business, I mean, what are the options? This is the conversation we have is, okay, so QuickBooks Online compared to like a Premiere Pro desktop edition, not great. But what are the other options, right? I'll wait. Like there are other options out there, but they're from what I've heard, they're worse than QuickBooks. So it's like, why go downhill rather than uphill? Anyway, but now, thanks to Cannon Johnson, so he mentioned, or he was in the chat earlier, and I mentioned that he introduced us, or I didn't really introduce us, but he and I were talking at FinTech in Nashville about inventory software. That inventory was on a lot of people's minds. Inventory management was on a lot of people's minds at FinTech, specifically software to help manage it. We're currently managing our inventory through QuickBooks, which also not a great process. Now, if you don't have a ton of SKUs, it's probably manageable. But now that we both we retail wholesale here as a brick and mortar, but also we sell quite a lot online. Shameless plug, ozfence.store. We've got a ton of just items we don't use on a daily basis in our business, but we've added because we sell them well online. It's getting a little bit unmanageable. So Cannon had mentioned a software called Fishbowl, and I said, we had a brief conversation about it. I was like, okay, interesting. I'll file that way in the back of my mind. And then so the CFO and I were talking about just inventory adjustments and how awful they are. And he's like, well, you really ought to look at some softwares. There's some out there. And I was like, you know what? I was talking with a buddy about Fishbowl, and he said, yeah, that was going to be one of the ones I suggested. I've got other clients that use Fishbowl, and they seem to like it. He goes, if anything, I can reach out to Fishbowl and have a conversation initially, give them the breakdown on how things work, and see what their options are. See what they say, if they think they would be a good fit. I said, well, they probably will because my buddy's using it, but by all means. So he did, and he came back and said, yep, they've got the solution. So anyway, they and I had a conversation, or CFO Dan and I, and the Fishbowl representative all met and went over our business front and back, spent about an hour talking about it. And at the end of it, I think Fishbowl is going to be a really good solution for inventory management. So it'll actually we'll still have QuickBooks for all of our accounting, but it'll sit above QuickBooks as our inventory management, also like sales order management. I don't know. Let me get into it. This is going to be a fall implementation so that we're not like just insanely busy while trying to integrate a new software into it. Because this Fishbowl will integrate into every area of our business. Installed sales, retail sales, e-commerce sales, everything. So stay tuned this fall. I'll be sure to give you guys some feedback on how that's going. It does connect to QuickBooks. And that's one of the selling points was that, so it'll actually it connects to Amazon, Walmart, eBay, Shopify, which is where we host our online store. It'll aggregate all of those sales, process them through, and then send them to QuickBooks as a sales receipt. Every order, which on Amazon, so I say this not to sound, there's plus or minus 100 orders a day on Amazon. Well, we're not entering 100 transactions plus whatever else we're doing here as a business. So right now we're grouping them. So Amazon pays every 2 weeks. We're grouping them every 2 weeks into one lump sale, if you will. So Fishbowl will aggregate all that data. And I asked him, I was like, so it'll do that in real time? He's like, well, not really real time. It's like every 3 minutes. Compared to every 2 weeks, every 3 minutes is real time. But anyway, it does all that and prepackages it, sends it to QuickBooks. And I'd asked him, I was like, let's talk about pain points. How many of your customers hate the QuickBooks interaction though? Because we've had other software that should integrate with QuickBooks that just absolutely ends up making a mess of it. And he said that's part of their integration. So they've got like a 6 to 8 week integration period where their team is working on getting everything connected. Our team is getting trained on how to work it properly. There's a soft launch where for a period of time, we'll have 2 separate books running, which will be madness, but it'll only be a couple weeks, it sounds like, and then it'll just go straight live. So we'll see. But according to the rep and according to some of the people he had referenced that do use it with QuickBooks, it does integrate directly. It sits over QuickBooks and it just sends all the transactional data, which means all of our team doesn't need to be in QuickBooks real time creating quotes and invoices and sales receipts, all that can be handled in Fishbowl so that the data should be cleaner after it settles down into QuickBooks, is the thought. Yeah, inventory management is my biggest issue. I tell you what, Ken, I had the same conversation, I'm going to say 20 or 30 times to be conservative at FinStech during the course of the week. And inventory management was everyone's hurdle. They're trying to figure it out. And that's what I told Fishbowl. I was like, listen, if you guys do this well, if you can figure this out and it works well, you need to come to the fencing industry, because there are a lot of people here struggling with this. And I talk to people from, job lot quantity. So we're talking to Drew earlier. Sorry, Drew, forgot your name there for a second. We're talking to Drew earlier that has a helper. Everyone from them trying to figure out how to keep track of what inventory they've got. Typically it's a couple different job locations, right? So it could be in their garage, or it could be at a shop that they rent, or it could be materials they've ordered but haven't received yet. So they're like will call situation at a supplier. Everyone from that to 2 or 3 crews. Now things are getting confusing as to what we actually have on hand versus what has been sold but not installed yet. But we should not sell that on another job, or else we're going to come up short. I was talking to one gentleman who also does e-commerce sales in a much larger capacity than we do, and he was having the same issue. They used a different inventory software that I've heard a lot of people mention, but his point was it didn't really integrate very well. It did well for service installers, but didn't do well if you're selling retail, either brick and mortar or e-commerce. So, like I said, if I had the conversation once, I had it 30, 40 times, talking about inventory being everyone's biggest issue right now. Almar says, that's very interesting. Thank you for the tip. We will check them out. Inventory is always a pain point. Absolutely. You definitely should. So let me get that link for you guys. Make sure I'm giving you correct information here. Again, not sponsored content, just someone that seems to work well. Now, and I'll say this. So Cannon's ahead of me in this by several months. I talked to him, and it sounds like, and Cannon, if you're still watching, you might jump in. It sounds like you guys have had good results so far with it. Now Cannon took it a step further, and this was part of him hiring someone in a professional capacity there at the company, that one of their roles is they are implementing this software. But it sounds like that it's worked very well for them. They're very happy with it. So, where did it go? Okay. So Al, yeah, if it works well, I mean, and I would appreciate your input after you meet with them. Let me know your impression. So it's literally fishbowl.com. Yeah. So, well, actually, yep. So I believe this is it. Actually, don't quote me on that one. So apparently there may be, but it is an online sales thing. Okay. Let's search Fishbowl inventory management. Okay. Scratch that first Fishbowl link. I will take it down, because that apparently is for online restaurant ordering, which they're probably, I mean, with a name like Fishbowl, surely they're somewhat related. But this Fishbowl inventory, these are the people we talk to. So, industries, resource. Yep. So, okay. Al, let me know your opinion too, and I'll let you guys know as we progress through this. Because again, once we're all sharing information together, we get better. Hello, how are you? Christopher, hello. Hi, Joe. Hello, Christopher. Christopher is looking for YouTube thoughts on Fin software. iCloud, ArcSite, Job Nimbus. Has Job Nimbus started back up with fencing contractors? They have. They were at Fence Tech in Nashville. And so my understanding, and you'd want to reach out to them directly, is you either have you come on board with either a mentor, so basically someone to help you onboard it into your business. It's not a ready-made software because there are no two fence companies that operate exactly alike, different business models and all that. So you build it to your company. So you typically either have someone with you that will help you implement it, someone like a Tony Thornton or a Sean King, somebody that offers these services, or you work with their onboarding team. You could do it either way. But as long as you do that, then yeah, they're open to fencing contractors. That was my understanding. We've been a Job Nimbus client for a good amount of time before that. I had to look. I think 2017 or 2018. We found them really before. It was either right when they didn't come into the fencing world, but a friend of mine has a roofing company and they use Job Nimbus, and so I started researching them. And anyway, it was a process getting our business set up, but now we tweak it when they have new tweaks, and it's pretty set up for us now. It is set up, but they are coming into fencing study. You said iCloud. I'm thinking you mean Fence Cloud. Fence Cloud is who we're using right now for bidding software. A shorter setup cycle. So it did take a little bit of time to set up. Really, it just took time to choose our suppliers, if your suppliers are in their system, then you can just import their catalog directly. You'll need to update pricing because the catalog pricing is kind of their retail pricing. And typically a lot of these suppliers have different pricing tiers. So you'll want to enter that and then build out your templates. So it probably took us a week. It took me a week and that's me running the business and doing this on the side. So it takes a little bit of time, but I like it. It does a layout really well. It's got map draw, so you can actually, if the house existed when the satellite view was taken, so new housing typically will use quick draw, but you can see the house, you can see the fence around the house. HOAs love that if they can picture where on the house it is. Typically, they all want a drawing, but they want to know where on the property it is. So. Fence Cloud and Job Nimbus is who we, out of your list, who we use. I mean, there's others, right? ArcSite, Justin Judy. I like Justin a lot. You should also, every company is going to be different in what works well. There's another one, Mascot Elite Technique. A lot of people speak very, very highly of Elite Technique. We have a software, I don't know, what you call it, bundle or stack, or so, I think it's called software stack is what the pros call them, that works well for us. And when it works well, I don't like changing it because I understand it could work better, but it could not work better. And this one works very well. This stack works very well for us now. So I haven't messed with it very much. But that being said, the ones you mentioned, Fence Cloud, ArcSite, Job Nimbus, all great. You should reach out to them again. Elite Technique with Matt. You should definitely check them out for sure as well. Twin Pines Fencing. Good morning, fencing gang. Good morning, Twin Pines. Should I put Postmaster in concrete or foam? Concrete. Don't even. You found me on YouTube. Search like fence post foam. Will that find search fence post foam on my channel. You'll find a few videos on that. Or if you watch Hacks from Canada, they love post foam. So anyway, could go either way. My personal and professional opinion is the foam is not great. We used in these videos, the first video we used Sitka Post Pro Select or Pro Select, Sitka, whatever their select product, what they sell in Home Depot and Lowe's. We use that. We used the second video. We used another one. Anyway, if you watch the videos, you will find them. The second one worked better than Sitka. Sitka just didn't perform, and we mixed it and we did all this. Sika had alleged initially that we doctored the results to put them in a bad light, to which I replied, no, I would have loved for it to work. But I mean, it's another product we could have sold. I would have loved for it to work. And we sent them, we had 3 cameras rolling for the whole thing, sent them all of the data, which was an immense amount of just raw video. Here's exactly what we did. Here's how we mixed it. Here's how we poured it. This was the real time of us just sitting there holding the post, waiting for it to cure and all that. And we did a bucket video as well. Here's a video of it in a bucket. To which they replied, well, the conditions obviously were not optimal. It was like cool and misty. So it's a day we would have gone and built fence normally. And had we used concrete, it would have performed very well in that scenario. That was the first video. Second video, we added a second post foam. Forget what it was called. It performed better than Sitka, but the control that we set in the same place, right next to, we did 2 posts of each. The 2 posts for concrete we set right next to 2 fence post foam posts, and the concrete obviously outperformed foam quite handily and at a fraction of the cost. So anyway, concrete is your answer. I had a very expensive fence installed. Half of the 6x6 posts have cracked of up to 1/4 inch, and then should I fill them? If so, how do you recommend I do it? You can, but if you do, it's going to be from an aesthetics perspective. I mean, yeah, checking is what it's called. So when you get a crack in lumber, it's called checking. Checking is a normal part of lumber. And we're moving forward as of this week, earlier this week, and when we produce a proposal that includes a wood product, in the terms and conditions on page 2 is wood materials are known to warp, twist, check. All of this is normal, and it is not covered by a warranty. Just because it's going to happen. Cedar, there's a conversation here that cedar is much less likely to do it, and when it does it in a much less extreme manner, but still bound to do it. So anyway, if you fill it, I mean, you could use wood filler, some sort of exterior grade wood filler. It would make it look nicer, but I don't know that it would do anything at all to it structurally. I'm getting back into fencing and adding decking after 2 years away. Welcome back. Anything new I need to know? I went to FenTech Nashville and signed with ArcSite. Very good. Can't wait to start using. Launch date is April the 3rd. Coming right up next week. Very good. Very good. I mean, what have you missed in 2 years? There's no telling. But if you were at FenTech, you got a good insight on what's going on. I mean, I think you're finding contractors are more open to collaborating, not colluding, but collaborating, just for the better of their market, both locally and nationally. So, but 2 years ago, I think we had that as well. So anyway, welcome back. Congratulations and best of luck on your launch date. Noah Devine, what's up, Noah? Hey, Joe and Fence fam. Hope everyone is busy and crushing it and having a great weekend. Couldn't agree more. Speaking of busy, crushing it, having a good weekend, we are at time. We're actually 16 minutes over the hour, and I have a little person's birthday party. And one of my son's friends has a birthday party that's about an hour away, and we got to get moving. But first, we have to record some reaction content for the channel. So anyway, a lot going on here. Noah, thank you so much for joining. Guys, I hope you got value out of today's conversation. Again, Cliff Notes version, HireClick for finding applicants. It aggregates applications from all over all of the online sites. There were several I didn't know existed, but apparently they are a thing. HireBus for doing personality assessments, which are incredibly accurate, and they help you try to, they take a little bit of the guesswork out of interviews. Those two, not sponsored, just content we pay full price for that we think that you guys should know about that works well for us. I'd love hearing back from you guys. If you're watching this as a recorded version, please still leave a comment. I follow these comments. They come straight to my phone, for better or worse. I see them all. All right, guys. For now, Joe Everest, the fence expert, reminding you that good fences make good neighbors, and I'll see you next week.